All right, today we're going to get into the real science of how habits actually form. We'll also talk about why making a meaningful change can sometimes feel, well, just about impossible, especially when you've been through it. We're going to break down a really powerful and compassionate way to build habits that actually stick. So let's get into it.
So let's start with a number you've probably heard a million times, 21 days. The whole idea is if you can just power through for 3 weeks, boom, it becomes second nature. But what if that idea is not just wrong, but is actually making it harder for us to succeed?
And here it is, a major reality check. The research is pretty clear. It actually takes an average of 66 days, and for some people, it can take up to 8 months for a new behavior to become truly automatic. So what about those first 21 days? Well, that's not the finish line. That's the starting block, and it's where the discomfort is at its absolute peak. It is supposed to feel hard.
Now, if change is already that difficult for pretty much anyone, it becomes exponentially harder for someone who has experienced trauma. And I want to be really clear, this isn't about willpower. It's about how the brain literally rewires itself for survival.
This right here is the crucial piece of the puzzle. For a brain that's been shaped by trauma, its number one job, above all else, is to stay safe. And for that brain, safe just means familiar. So even if a familiar habit is unhealthy, the brain at least knows what to expect. A new, healthier habit, that's an unknown, and that unknown can feel like a major threat.
And here's how that plays out in real life. The brain is always going to choose the quick, short-term relief of what it knows over the potential long-term benefit of something new. On top of that, trauma can actually dull the brain's reward system. This means you could do a new, positive habit and not even get that little feel-good kick from it at first. And of course, building new habits with other people is so much harder because the very foundation of trust has to be rebuilt from scratch.
So, how in the world do you build new habits when your own brain is wired to resist them? Well, you don't fight it, you work with it. The path forward is a structured, 5-step process that's designed for this exact challenge.
So here's our roadmap. You can see it all starts with safety. Then it makes the change manageable. After that, it provides hands-on coaching, celebrates the progress, and finally prepares a person for long-term success on their own. Each step really does build on the one before it.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts right here. Before any kind of learning or change can happen, a person has to feel emotionally safe. That means you have to normalize how difficult this is and connect any new habit to their own personal goals, not just what someone else thinks they should do. It's all about building trust before you even think about building anything else.
This is such a powerful way to reframe the whole experience. Think about it. When you tell someone that discomfort is just a sign their brain is learning, not a sign that they're failing, you completely remove shame from the equation. And as soon as that shame is gone, motivation finally has a little room to grow. Okay, once that feeling of safety is there, you can start to build. But these huge, vague goals like, I'm going to be a better parent, they're just overwhelming and set you up to fail. The key is to shrink that mountain. Pick one simple, observable action, something like, I will read one bedtime story tonight, and write it down. It creates an early win and gives you the confidence you need for what's next.
Okay, next up we move into the active part of the whole process, which is actually putting the new habit into practice. This is going to cover steps 3 and 4 of our model, and the big idea here is focusing on progress, not perfection.
This is the absolute core of step 3. You know, it's one thing to tell someone to use a calm voice, but it's another thing entirely to show them what that actually looks and sounds like. When you model a skill, you make an abstract idea concrete and you prove that it's possible. That lowers the fear and just makes it easier to even try. And then, while they're trying, you reinforce their progress. Now, this is crucial. It means you praise the effort, not just the perfect result. Saying something like, hey, I noticed you took a deep breath before you responded is way more powerful than waiting for some flawless interaction. This is what builds the genuine belief that they can do this. So the other half of this step is all about reflection. After you notice and reinforce that effort, asking simple questions like these turns an action into this incredibly powerful learning moment. It helps people connect the dots in their own mind, linking their new behavior to a positive result, and that's what strengthens that new pathway in the brain. So, we've walked through the first 4 steps. Now, before we get to that final, crucial step, making the change actually last, it's really important to understand what the typical journey, or the arc of change, looks like.
This timeline just lays it out so perfectly. Look, the first 3 weeks are going to be uncomfortable. That resistance is normal.
Then, from about 3 weeks to 2 months, all that repetition starts to build a sense of familiarity. And it's really only after about 60 days that it starts to feel natural. Just knowing this helps you trust the process, even when it feels really hard.
So the final step is all about getting ready for real life. Success isn't about never having a bad day. We all have bad days. It's about planning for them. This means talking ahead of time about what to do when things go wrong and normalizing that setbacks are just a part of learning. And it means treating the end of support not like a loss, but like a graduation, a true sign of strength.
And this brings us to what I think is the most important metaphor in this entire process. A supporter, whether you're a therapist, a friend, a partner, you're not there to build a house for them. You are the scaffolding. You're that temporary structure that provides safety and support so the person can do the building themselves. The whole point is for the scaffolding to eventually come down, leaving behind a strong, independent structure.
So, what it all comes down to is this. Real change is a process, not an event. It requires safety, it needs small, manageable steps, and it demands the grace to know that discomfort is just a sign of growth. So I'll leave you with this final thought. For yourself, or maybe for someone you really care about, where could a little bit of scaffolding help build something that will last a lifetime?